Well, greetings. We're glad that you're here. My name is Mark Shep. I'll introduce myself more detailed a little bit later on with the slides, but just wanted to say, again, glad you're here. This is the third in a series of 3 workshops I do around trying to apply in a very practical way brain research to church, school, and home. And just some housekeeping things. We're on Zoom, so if you've been on this before, you know there's a chat box, chat link. Look for that somewhere on your screen. Not sure what device you're on, but there'll be a chat screen, and that will allow you to ask questions as we go. And also mics. If you can mute your mic, that would be helpful for me, just so we don't have a lot of background noise during the recording. This will be recorded, and we'll have a link at the end where you can find this recording and let others in as well. Okay, I think that's it for housekeeping. I'm going to get my sharing started here, and we're going to dive into this thing. What you should be seeing here in a moment is my slides. So there's my slides full screen, and away we go. I should be my video up in a corner somewhere. Just you can move that around if it gets in the way. So again, let's dive in, talking about play, rest, and sleep today. And I'll introduce myself in a little more detail. Here's the email, fatherfitz@gmail.com, fatherfitz@gmail.com, down at the bottom there. I'll have this slide up at the end as well. Want to keep going here. Mark and Becky Shep, my wife Becky and I, are focused on health and wellness for folks. We've been always interested in that our whole life, but especially since Becky came into cancer history back in 92 and 96 and 2010. So a lot of history with that, plus some fallout from the treatments. So we're really focused on health and wellness. And we got interested in the brain thing because of this. Back in 92, well, my family traveled for a living as a juggling family of all things. 12 years full-time, 20 years total. Went under the name Fitz, F-I-T-Z, Fitz Family Ministries. You can still see some things on YouTube. Fitz Family Anniversary, Fitz Family Jugglers, a bunch of different things you can find. But I came across an article in 92, and this picture was taken, that connected success with reading with success with juggling. In other words, take a struggling reader, teach that kid how to juggle, and the reading skills go measurably and significantly up. So that's really sort of pulled my attention to brain research, and I've been following it ever since with some gusto, and always with the health and wellness interest. And it really focused then onto 3 things. Big difference in focus and brain function when we think about exercise, diet, and play. Now, today is play. We have 2 other workshops. The first one's on exercise. I do hope you take a look at that. This is a kid named Destin, has ODD. Lots more to say about that in the workshop, but dramatically changed this kid's life and the lives of some others in these videos because simply he got on a treadmill 5 days a week. And so more about that in the other workshops. More about this picture, the power of movement on the brain. Won't say more about that here, but you can check it out in the other workshops. And then second workshop's on diet. Appleton Central Alternative High School was the example in that case. And again, a dramatic change in the school when they changed one thing. They changed the diet. They changed the lunchroom. And they didn't allow extra stuff to come in. So check those out. Don't want to say more about that here, but there are lots to say in those other workshops. Critically important stuff. We hope you take a look. All right, we always like to start with a little joke. This is an actual test, and the actual answer from the test. Find X. Okay, teacher, this is not that hard. Here it is. Come on, give me some harder questions here. So thinking about the brain, you know, we kind of joke a little bit once in a while. Always good to laugh. All right, now play. I don't have a single definition of play. I don't think that's really possible. Play is such a big thing. But I like this definition that a kid gave, school-age kid. Play is what I do when everyone else stops telling me what to do. And if you're a kid, remember back in those days, you can understand that. But guess what? This also works for adults. All right. This is our granddaughter, Charlotte. And childhood is a process, not a race. And we'll spend a little bit of time in this workshop thinking about that. We have wanted to speed childhood up, get kids to the academic faster, that we think that's a good thing. Turns out it's not a good thing. Kids they desperately need play to be ready for academics. There's some countries in the world that don't go to school at all till 7 years old, and they do just fine. Thank you very much. And so we have to think about that a little bit. I want to have you watch a video. This is Sir Ken Robinson, TED Talk that he did. This is just one little burst of it. The whole talk is on a new paradigm for education. I pulled this little section out because of the implication it has for play. So I want you to just watch this and we'll talk about it afterwards.
And it's about standardization. I believe we've got to go in the exact opposite direction. That's what I mean about changing the paradigm. There was a great study done recently of divergent thinking. Published a couple of years ago. Divergent thinking isn't the same thing as creativity. I define creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. Divergent thinking isn't a synonym, but it's an essential capacity for creativity. It's the ability to see lots of possible answers to a question, lots of possible ways of interpreting a question, to think what Edward de Bono would probably call laterally, to think not just in linear or convergent ways, to see multiple answers, not one. So, I mean, there are tests for this. I mean, one kind of cod example would be, people might be asked to say, how many uses can you think of for a paperclip? One of those routine questions. Most people might come up with 10 or 15. People who are good at this might come up with 200. And they do that by saying, well, could the paperclip be 200 foot tall and be made out of foam rubber? You know, like, does it have to be a paperclip as we know it, Jim? You know. Now, there are tests for this, and they gave them to 1,500 people. This is in a book called Breakpoint and Beyond. And on the protocol of the test, if you scored above a certain level, you'd be considered to be a genius at divergent thinking. Okay? So my question to you is, what percentage of the people tested, of the 1,500, scored at genius level for divergent thinking? Now, you need to know one more thing about them. These were kindergarten children. So what do you think? What percentage at genius level? 80. 80, okay. 98%. Now, the thing about this was it was a longitudinal study. So they retested the same children 5 years later, ages of 8 to 10. What do you think? 50? They retested them again 5 years later, ages 13 to 15. You can see a trend here, can't you? Now, this tells an interesting story, because you could have imagined it going the other way, couldn't you? You start off not being very good, but you get better as you get older. But this shows two things. One is we all have this capacity, and two, it mostly deteriorates. Now, a lot of things have happened to these kids as they've grown up. A lot. But one of the most important things that happened to them, I'm convinced, is that by now they've become educated. You know, they've spent 10 years at school being told there's one answer, it's at the back. And don't look. And don't copy, because that's cheating. I mean, outside schools, that's called collaboration, you know, but inside schools.
All right. I want to just let that stand on its own. Check out the whole thing if you're interested. But I liked what he said about divergent thinking and school-age kids. In other words, he said everybody has it, that capacity. And what happened? He said, well, we got educated. I think the other thing that happened is play has changed. Play has changed, I think dramatically so. This is another video, Kane's Arcade. I encourage you to look this up on YouTube, Kane's Arcade. There's about 3 different versions of this. I want to show you one segment of this to kind of introduce you to it, but check it out. And well, I'll let the video talk, and then we'll comment afterwards.
This all started with going to buy a door handle. It was last summer, and I went down to this random used auto parts store, and I met this 9-year-old boy named Kane.
I'm Kane.
Who had taken over his dad's store with this elaborate cardboard arcade. I was his first customer.
He saw something in my son that nobody else saw, and he made a film about it.
I posted the film online 4 months ago. Little did I realize that both of our lives were about to change.
Finally, tonight, we have a great story out of Los Angeles, East LA to be precise.
When you're a lonely 9-year-old boy, an empty cardboard box can be a universe of possibility.
I found this great story. I want to share it with you.
They're lining up to play at his cardboard arcade.
This kid made his own arcade.
A filmmaker.
Okay, now, I want to stop it there. Check it out. There's way more to that, and you see the implication this had on kids who watched this literally around the world. Now, here's what happened. It became a movement. This went online, and people would end up flying to LA, take a taxi or Uber or whatever, and go to this guy's store and experience Kane's Arcade, get back in the Uber, back to the LAX, and back home again. Fascinating. And there's kids in the rest of that video saying, unbelievable, this is so great. And listen, I'm 66 years old. If you're 50 or so and older, folks, this is how kids played. There was nothing, nobody would have come to your door for NBC News saying, we have to put this on TV. This is incredible. No, it's just how kids played. Play has changed, and I think that has an impact on how we are functioning with our brains. So, a couple things. This slide says brain wires based on experience. That's the one line that I have seen the most, absolutely the most, when I've gone through the research. Put it into another phrase. What the brain does a lot of, it gets good at, okay? And so play is critical in that sense. We'll talk about play more in detail about how that wires the brain. Now, I apologize for the very long quote, but down at the bottom, Patricia Greenfield, we're going to take this in 3 chunks. Informal learning environments of television, video games, and the internet. Now, informal learning environments, think of that as play. Those environments are producing learners with a new profile of cognitive skills. They feature widespread and sophisticated development of visual spatial skills, such as iconic representation and spatial visualization. So those things are getting way better because why? We do them all the time. Formal education, that's schools, have to adapt to these changes, taking advantage of the new strengths in visual spatial intelligence, again, because they're doing it so much, and compensating for new weaknesses in higher order cognitive processes, new weaknesses like abstract vocabulary, mindfulness, reflection, inductive problem solving, critical thinking, and imagination. Holy mackerel. Those are pretty critical skills, and this author takes the stand that they're weakening. Lots of teachers I talk to say that's what they see in school as well. So those last list of critical skills developed through the use of an older technology called reading. What in the world? Which, along with audio media such as radio, stimulates imagination. Informal education, play, therefore requires a balanced media diet using each technology's specific strengths in order to develop a critical phrase, a complete profile of cognitive skills. And so play cannot be just one-dimensional either. You can be playing lots and only be one-dimensional play, and that's not good for you either. All right, another video, TED Talk. Now, I explain this. This is a gal, a scientist who studies gaming and the brain. And she's going to make you do something in here about watching for different things. So pay attention to that. You're going to try to track down blue dots and yellow dots. And let's just watch the video and away we go.
I'm a brain scientist, and as a brain scientist, I'm actually interested in how the brain learns. And I'm especially interested in the possibility of making our brains smarter, better, and faster. This is in this context I'm going to tell you about video games. When we say video game, most of you think about children. It's true, 90% of children do play video games. But let's be frank. When the kids are in bed, who is in front of the PlayStation? Most of you. The average age of a gamer is 33 years old, not 8 years old. And in fact, if we look at the projected demographics of video game play, the video game players of tomorrow are older adults. So video games is pervasive throughout our society. It is clearly here to stay. It has an amazing impact on our everyday life. Consider these statistics released by Activision. After 1 month of release of the game Call of Duty Black Ops, it had been played for 68,000 years worldwide, right? Would any of you complain if this was a case about doing linear algebra? So what we're asking in the lab is how can we leverage that power? One aspect of attention which is also improved for the better is our ability to track objects around in the world. This is something we use all the time. When you're driving, you're keeping track of the cars around you. You're also keeping track of the pedestrian, the running dog, and that's how you can actually be safe driving, right? In the lab, we get people to come to the lab, sit in front of a computer screen, and we give them little tasks that I'm going to get you to do again. You're going to see yellow happy faces and a few sad blue faces. Your task is to keep track of who had a coat at the beginning and who didn't. So I'm just going to show you an example where there is only one sad kid. It's easy because you can actually track it with your eyes. You can track, and then when it stops and there's a question mark and I ask you, did this kid had a coat or not? Was it yellow initially or blue? I hear a few yellow. Good, so most of you have a brain. I'm now going to ask you to do the task, but now with a little more challenging task. There are going to be 3 of them that are blue. Don't move your eyes. Please don't move your eyes. Keep your eyes fixated and expand, pull your attention. That's the only way you can actually do it. If you move your eyes, you're doomed. Yellow or blue? Good. So your typical, normal young adult can have a span of about 3 or 4 objects of attention. That's what we just did. Your action video game player has a span of about 6 to 7 objects of attention, which is what is shown in this video here. That's for you guys, action video game player. They're more challenging, right? Yellow or blue? Blue. We have some people that are serious out there, yeah. Good.
Okay, you can see, and by the way, I'm a proponent, you'll guess by the end of our time, certainly of classic play, rough and tumble outside, hands-on, that kind of thing. But I am not anti-electronic games at all, and this will help show that. Powerful things happen with electronic games, and I don't know if you caught this, Call of Duty Black Ops, that's a video game that people play online, and when it was released, after 1 month of calendar time, the cumulative time of hours that game had been played by people around the world, in other words, I play 1 hour, that's 1 hour. My friend plays 1 hour, that's 2 hours cumulative. 2 other friends, that's 4 hours cumulative. Cumulative around the world, 68,000 years worth of playtime inside of a month of calendar time. That betrays the popularity of gaming. Now, a couple of things about gaming. League of Legends, you may recognize that name. It's a team game, and it's worldwide team games. Nations are playing against each other, teams from different nations. The championship was played at the Staples Center in California, in LA. Sold out crowd for the World Finals. 20,000 tickets were sold in 1 hour, and another 20 million people watched that live online. So it's, I mean, the gaming industry dwarfs the movie industry in terms of popularity. And again, what you do, a lot of you get good at, 6 mouse commands per second. I'm not even close to that. I'm lucky to get 1 per second, okay, because I don't do it. That's the name of the thing that happens with the brain. Okay, brain break. Now I'm going to stand up, encourage you to do the same. I talk about brain breaks in the beginning of my in my first workshop on education, on exercise. But I want you to just, get some blood flow. There's a good reason to do this. We're about 20 minutes in. If you want to stand up again and shake around. That picture I showed you before about the 2 scans of the brain indicate why we need to do this, but we won't get into that now. I encourage you to check the other one out. Okay, now, how does the brain work? I like to think about it as a smartphone. Doesn't matter which kind it is. Every smartphone has an operating system and some what we call apps, some standardized apps that come with it. Now, the truth is, all of us were born the same way. We have an operating system, a brain, and a functioning electronic system, and some apps. Everybody in the world has the language acquisition app at birth. So wherever we are, we're going to learn that language in the first year. It doesn't matter. We will learn 3 languages if they're all spoken fluently in that first year. That's just how it is. However, nobody in the world is born with the cooperation app. That doesn't come at birth. We have to, quote, download that. And how do you download the app? You download the app by doing it. What the brain does a lot of, it gets good at. If you're not engaged in cooperation or things that force cooperation, that encourage cooperation, where you get bumped out if you don't cooperate, you won't learn cooperation. So play, I like to think about play in terms of two sets of two words. For children first. For children, play is about practice and programming. We, as kids, as infants, we just have a grandchild born to us about 2 weeks ago. A lot of practice and programming going on for that newborn all the way through early elementary and beyond, really, but certainly in those first years, critical stuff going on for the brain to figure out how it functions with the body and how it's going to get wired for the stuff that comes later. And then for adults, play is about processing and performance. We don't function very well if we never get a chance to slow down, rest, play, and sleep. Now, I'm going to show you this little video. It's 4 hours of play reduced to 2 minutes. Now, the parents are around when the video is going here, and you just barely see them slip in and out. And you see this toddler, all the toys are in the middle, and you see what happens.
Côte contre côte, nos cœurs vibrent battant. Et dans ces courses, du sang dérive, on tombe presque hors champ. Et ton tes rires qui défonce plus que l'ego qui te prend. Tu nous réduis à l'impossible dans tes tourments. Et sans gêne, tu te défonces. Tu ne comprends pas.
Okay, I'm not going to continue that. You can check it out online if you want, or find other examples of it, or maybe you have kids and see it for yourself. The point is, varying stages of early childhood require varying kinds of play, but it's all about practicing and wiring, programming. Okay, kids need, quote, daily rapid vestibular input. Vestibular input is making the inner ear, the balance mechanism, work hard. Okay, think, run, skip, jump, roll, hang upside down, all of that. That is, interestingly enough, we'll talk about this a little later, critical for the brain's ability to wire for reading, for example, to handle other kinds of eye-hand coordination, etc. And then things like risky play. If you don't ever play risky things or risky ways, you don't wire for handling risk very well. So play that's rough and tumble, for example, on the left side, high speed running, great heights, climbing, dangerous tools, hammers and saws, dangerous elements, fire pits and cliffs, exploration on your own. We've tended to make our kids' play safe, and maybe some of the toys we had in our playground were a little too unsafe, but we've made it too safe. And there's now places that purposely put kids in, quote, dangerous settings to help them learn how to handle risk. And it's just interesting. If you don't experience risk, you don't know how to handle risk. So kinds of play. The guy's name is Stuart Brown. He has a book called Play. That's what it's called. And these are his definitions, his listings of the different kinds of play. Attunement and bonding is just, critical with parents and kids. That's what's going on right now with my son and daughter-in-law and Lucy. Okay, a lot of bonding going on, but that's still going on with my wife and I, with friends with each other. That still goes on. Body and movement play. You saw that with the little kid, but that doesn't stop. Racquetball, that's movement. Taizé, yoga, whatever. You go to the gym. Object play. Imaginative play and pretend play. That's what, at least one of the elements that was with Kane's Arcade, those kind of play. Social play, side by side, face to face, critical kinds of play. Rough and tumble, turns out, is very interesting in research. Rough and tumble is critical, again, to help kids learn when to say no. When is it too rough? If you've never done rough and tumble, or you've done a rough and tumble that hasn't ended at appropriate levels, you don't learn when to do it. And that's when you have, sometimes bullies come out of this. Celebration and ritual, seventh inning stretch, all kinds of things there. And then storytelling and narrative play. And think about Kane's Arcade. It wasn't a single one, just imaginative play. It was all kinds of these different things connected together for Kane's Arcade to help that kid develop. and you watch the full video. He went from a very shy kid who stuttered to a very expressive kid who was comfortable in lots of settings. Play helped do that. And then transformative and creative play at the bottom, lots of different ways that play can be done. So I encourage you to do this, play inventory. Think about you, whatever age you are now, think about your play up to your age 10. What things did you do? Make a list. Then make a list of kids that you know today. Maybe they're your kids, maybe they're kids you know, aunts, nieces and nephews, whatever, grandkids, neighbors. What are kids doing today up to age 10? And compare those two. What's different about those two? I think you're going to find some differences. And what's the implication of that? We got to think about, again, that long quote talked about a wide range of appropriate kind of play. And then we ought to be thinking about ourselves as adults. How do we play? Do we have some play on that list of 9 or 10 that we just had up there on that slide? A lot of adults might think, I don't do any play. Well, that's not healthy. Adults also need to play and rest and sleep. Especially for adults, this is a little clip from the movie Apollo 13. You'll recognize this when you see it.
Holding there for those guys.
Gene, we have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module.
5 filters on the LEM.
Which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc.
They're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the LEM are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
It just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, now, you may have seen the movie, recognize the clip. You know that they got it, they did it, okay? Now, play in the work world. That's from Jet Propulsion Lab, Caltech's JPL, late 90s. They were finding, this is well after this movie, in the late 90s, young engineers coming in had great difficulty problem solving, like the Apollo 13 disaster kind of thing that you just saw. They had trouble doing that. And the common thread they discovered was lack of manipulative play as a child. What happened? What your brain does a lot of, it gets good at, or it isn't good at it because you've never done it or not done enough of it. So manipulative play as a child helps us be good at that kind of thing as an adult. And then also work world, engineering students in England, many were having a very difficult time with what they call spatial mathematical concepts. I have no idea what that is, but there is such a thing. And they found another common variable. Lack of manipulative play as a child. If you don't play 3D, your brain doesn't think very well 3D, and you have trouble processing that. Now, classic play, I call classic play versus screen time play. Again, not playing one off against the other, just they're different than one another. And classic play is more physical play, in the flesh, etc. And then those different kinds of play. Well, certainly classic play does all of them. Guess what? Screenplay does most of them as well. Face-to-face and social side, well, you know what? There's people who are playing games together with headphones on in real time, and they are fast friends with people all over the world, and we can't say that that's not a real relationship. It is a real friendship. Rough and tumble is a little harder to deal with. Attunement bonding, face-to-face, again, that's done, but fine motor may be a little harder to do. And then object play, again, you're not manipulating anything but that controller. And what does that do? We're still trying to figure that out in terms of the scientists looking that up. But screen time and classic play can both do all of the kind of play we need, but we just have to make sure that there's a good range of play with kids. So play as a child's work, the tension between academics and play. And we've seen that play itself out in terms of how early childhood centers advertise themselves. Parents want a leg up for their kids, and they tend to think a leg up means they want an academic setting and play in kindergarten. Turns out, in early childhood, even before that, turns out that's not very good. And there's a grid that helps you see what's happening. Kim Markshausen is the resource for that. You can check her out, Lutheran educator. So what skill, left side, what skill do you want as a parent for your kids to have? Cognitive flexibility. Second one down, inhibitive control. Yeah, how do you say no? Okay, well, go through the grid. Definition, what is that? Take action or intake of sensory information to enhance concentration, inhibitive control. Taking on the role of baby in a game requires a child to refrain from talking or walking, but still find ways to direct the game. Being able to block out learning behavior, block out unwanted sensory information to concentrate on the work at hand, inhibitive control. Working memory, same thing there. Another couple, sustained concentration, prediction. All of the skills we want our kids to have, guess what? Play, broadly done, helps them do all of it. Now, jump into sleep, play, rest, sleep. Turns out that this is what our brain looks like, figuratively speaking, at the end of a day. Our neurons have electrical impulses going inside the neurons. They hit the end of the neuron, and there's a space called the synapse between that and the next neuron. That space, we squirt chemicals across it. Lots of different chemicals, and by the end of the day, if we've had a very engaging day, figuratively speaking, this is what our brain looks like. And literally, they find that at night, when we sleep and when we sleep well, our brain has kind of like a wash going, a flood of fluid go over it to help clean up those chemicals. And then with the input that we have these days, we have this at the end of our day because we're so inundated with information. And hopefully at the end of the, well, inundated, here's some technology information. Zettabyte, we have to keep naming bigger bytes because that's too much information out there. So 30 zettabytes are generated per year. Netflix, 1 hour of Netflix equals 1 gigabyte. Now we understand gigabyte because we've seen that more on our computers and our hard drives. How much is a zettabyte? 1 zettabyte. If you binge watched Netflix for 55 million years, that will be 1 zettabyte of information. That's 55 million years, 24 hours a day, folks. And that's only one, and every year we're generating 30 zettabytes. We're buried with data, okay? And so that's why we hope to get at the end of the night, we're processing information, our brains are organizing things, getting rid of stuff we haven't used, finding connections it didn't know before, all kinds of important things while we sleep. So our brain's not sleeping while we sleep. Our brain's very active while we sleep. And if we don't sleep well, it doesn't do its job very well while we sleep. Well, okay, so now what? Lots more to say about play, but I want you to think about that inventory. In other words, you up to 10 years old, kids these days up to 10 years old. Think about the inventory of play, that list of 9 or 10 different kinds of play. Adults have to model play is important. We have to do it ourselves and let kids, certainly let kids in the early years be there. That's their work. That's the main thing they do. So we play for health and we play to prime the pump in teams and in the classroom because it helps affirm and encourage creativity. That's one of the many things play does. Okay, lots more to say about play. That's all I'm going to say about it today. Workshops going forward. We got those 3 workshops I talked about: exercise, diet, and play, rest, sleep. They're all going to be recorded. They're going to be on our webpage. I'll talk about which webpage to get them at. I also have one, nutrition for the long haul and for immunity. We're connected to an organization, to a company, health and wellness company, Neolife. That workshop, actually, we're going to do that live tomorrow. But check that out. If you want the workshops live, you need to go to realign-the-design.com and go to that website. And that gives you the events that we have scheduled coming out there live, Zoom Live workshops, because that allows interaction. Then Facebook.com, that's where we're going to have links to the recordings of this. And then again, the email is fatherfitz@gmail.com. If you've got questions about anything we've done here, we encourage you to check those out. And again, tomorrow at 9 is nutrition for the long haul. Includes information about the immune system, very, very informational, very practical. And these days, particularly, the immune system is of great importance to us. So there they are again. Check it out. And I'm going to get out of here in just a second, give you a second or two to just write those down. I'll be happy to send them to you. If you just get the email, ask me any questions, and we'll send them, send the information back to you. I'm going to stop sharing and end up back at the screen here. So that's the workshop. Hope it's helpful. Do check out all the workshops in that series of 3, exercise, diet, and play, very important stuff. And check out the nutritional workshop. Send me any questions. Oh, by the way, I'd love to get information you come across about brain and health and wellness. I'd love to see those kind of things. So check that out. And otherwise, thanks for being with us. And that's our time together. Thank you.